Okay, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Wheel Talk. Hey, Brittany, what is up? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How was your week?
Yeah, it was great actually. A really fun week. Lots of fun things. Went for a big hike, which was cool.
Oh,
But I can chat more about that later. But yeah, how was your week?
it was really good. We spent the week mostly getting ready for kids to go back to school. We've been gone mostly all summer doing holiday things, and so the kids got back and they were trying to stuff a lot of friends' stuff into the last week they had off of school. So I was mostly playing chauffeur and hosting sleepovers and stuff and going school shopping. So going to the mall when it was crazy busy. So lots of like mom type things. And then finally got out on my hand cycle for the first time this year, which is like really sad that it's been like so long and that I haven't even like gotten on it this summer. And I thought I'd share a fun little story that happened to me while I was hand cycling.
Yeah, please
Um,
do.
funny thing, the first hand cycle, Jamie decides to go like 15 kilometers and she's like blowing me out of the water because she's using her legs biking. So I'm like trying to keep up to these two kids because I'm with her and her friend and dying. So I'm really out of shape. Side note, don't do that the first time. But anyway, I was cycling with her the other night and I was in a local park and a lady kind of was looking at me like really intently. And so I was like, oh, she's probably going to want to chat with me. And she goes, that's a really cool bike. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm paralyzed. It's called a hand cycle. And she was like, yeah, my grandson is paralyzed. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, how old is he? And she was like, he's 5. And so we started talking about how he got paralyzed and it was a tumor when he was 3 months old. So he's been paralyzed basically since birth. And then she was just like, this is really cool. Like, you're just out with your daughter and being active. And it was a really good reminder that showing up for yourself, doing the things like being active and just living your life in a wheelchair is showing up for other people because
Mm.
she was really sad when she found out her grandson was going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. And then just seeing me with my own kids entirely changed her
Mm.
perspective on what his life could look like growing up as an adult with a spinal cord injury. And so I thought that was a really cool, just sort of scenario that happens a lot when you are in a wheelchair. And it really related to this podcast that I was listening to that you just did with, oh my God, you have to remind me of his name.
His name was Will Ruan.
Will Ruan. I was going to say Paul, and I was like, it's not Paul. It's not Paul. But he's a very active guy in a wheelchair. And he said in the podcast, in part of it, that he watched your videos when he was in the
Mm.
hospital. And you showing up on YouTube and showing up for yourself and living your life as a person with a spinal cord injury helped somebody else live their life with a spinal cord injury. And I think the things that we do in our own lives help the people behind us follow in our footsteps. No pun intended.
Mm.
But yeah, it was just a cool sort of experience that I had that showed me that I should just keep living my life. And if I keep living my life, even if it's not like in a public forum like YouTube or something like we're doing right now, just in my daily life, it can help somebody else just by them seeing that spinal cord injury isn't a sad existence. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Thank you for bringing up the podcast, and thanks for listening to it as well, because I sent it
Yeah,
to
it was
you.
really good.
It was one of the highlights of my week, actually. Chatting with Will was such a pleasure. He's such a gentleman. I find him very endearing. Could you understand his accent? Because Brian got in touch and he said, I love the guy, but I couldn't understand what he was saying because he's from the north of England. Did you have trouble understanding?
I didn't, but it's probably because my husband works for a company that has many people from the UK. And so his boss is from the UK. One of his really good friends is from the UK, and they have very wildly different accents,
Mm,
but the one of the friends is from the north, and so it sounds very, I'm like, it's almost like Australian, Scottish, it's like a mix of like a bunch of different things. But it
yeah,
took me a really long time when I first met him to understand what he was saying.
yeah,
And it's a very similar accent. So I could understand
good.
Will, but yeah.
Yeah, so I recorded a podcast with Will, and it's so flattering to hear that he's watched my videos and it helped him out
Yeah.
early on, because he's been injured half the time that I've been injured. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't listened to the podcast yet. And shameless plug, it is on Spotify. It's called Wheel Talk. This exact platform, it's on Spotify. I didn't do it on YouTube because there was a video issue, but I'm actually really glad I did it on Spotify because it's actually driven a lot of traffic to our podcast and that platform there. But Will is a tremendous guy. He's so lovely, very down to earth. He's been injured half the time that I've been injured, and he seems to have achieved double. He's remarkable. He has such a great attitude. He really took it on the chin. He has returned to work in a very, I guess, what you would call a non-typical, like what you would. Well, he works in a glass factory, and I think he's been promoted to the manager. They've got him a stand-up wheelchair and all these wonderful things. But he's done, when it comes to sports and climbing, if you check out his like Instagram, it is incredible. He climbs like para climbing, and it's as hard as it sounds. You know, you're climbing overhangs normally, so your legs don't drag along, and he's just doing these big pull-ups with his big muscly arms. And another fantastic fact about Will is that he lost 38 kilos, which is remarkable. Like, so after this was after his injury, he said to himself, you know what, I can't change anything about my legs, but what I can do is just have the best upper body that I can have. And I really do need to shed some of this weight. So he lost 38 kilos, which is remarkable. And yeah, it's just a success story after success story. And he seems to have he's just a beacon of shining light in the spinal cord injury community. And I would definitely say, for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode, please do, because I'm particularly proud of it. And it was lovely to showcase his achievements, especially for his friends and family that he hadn't, like, he got in touch with me and said old friends from college and school got in touch with him saying, oh my God, I listened to it. And he's got so much recognition, which I think he wouldn't have got otherwise, because he's a very humble guy. So that was one of the highlights of my week, chatting to Will.
Yeah, and a very, very cool story in that he is probably more successful after his spinal cord injury in terms of physical fitness, sport, all of those kinds of things than he was before.
Even romance.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's probably done more since his spinal cord injury than he's done in his whole life before. And one of my favorite parts of the description of the podcast was that you said he was like annoyingly successful. And I always say that when I meet people that don't have any issues adjusting to life with a spinal cord injury. Like, I'm just like, shut up. Who are you? You know, the rest of us, well, not everybody, but a lot of us spend many years feeling really lost and kind of just floating around in life, not really doing, much. So anytime I see people like that, I'm like, oh my God, I love that you said he was annoyingly successful.
Yeah, he is, because I saw his Instagram, and I do understand that Instagram is a highlight reel, but his highlight reel is ridiculous. Like, he's skiing. I've tried sit skiing. I used to be a very good snowboarder, and you'd think that I would geographically located perfectly for sit skiing. Didn't like it at all. Couldn't get on with it. I was also a bit scared of getting injured. And there's Will. He's like getting air. I think he went on a trip with like loads of other people, and they were all like falling over, and he was just excelling. So he seems to excel at all the sports. But anyway, enough bigging up Will. There's a whole podcast to go and listen to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So for those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, Wheel Talk available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We will leave a link in the description or one of the comments. And yeah, you can go check it out. Please do. What else were we going to talk about, Brit? We were going to talk about faith healing, because we had a comment from the live stream last week, which I think it meant, obviously no disrespect, but it was promoting some sort of book where you can, like many sort of books, that you can think your way better. You can think your way out of many things. Like, it's almost like a placebo effect. The thing is with spinal cord injury, I think there is a place for it. Like, if you want to think your way out of nerve pain, or think your way out of, I don't want to discount faith healing completely, but I'm very, very skeptical of it. And especially when it comes to having a spinal cord injury, which is so, that doesn't matter how much you think yourself better, you're never going to heal your spinal cord injury through like a placebo effect kind of faith healing. What's your take on it, Brittany?
A very similar take. I do definitely believe in the placebo effect. I believe in the nocebo effect. There's been many studies on cancer and things like that where people weren't told their timeline of, how long they had to live, and people who were told their timeline, and people who were told their timeline, they died almost to the day or to the month of when they were told they were supposed to die, and people who didn't know lived 2 years longer. So there's definitely a place for your thoughts in healing and positivity and all of that stuff, because after all, chemical things happen from terrible thoughts, and chemical things happen from really positive thoughts. So I do think that there is a place for it, but I also think it's really detrimental to tell somebody that they can heal themselves if they just think positively enough or believe enough, because it takes a lot of or it creates a lot of shame, I feel like, in people that really value their ability to kind of see something through and be a positive person. And I have a friend that was like that she just, like, she had dreams that she was going to walk again, and she did hyperbaric oxygen, and she did all of these like treatments, and she was just like, I feel it, I'm going to walk again. And then every year as she didn't, she was just like, felt more shame around having spread that message, and then shame around having not done a good enough job at being a believer and all that stuff. And it just created a really negative situation for her. And it also, I think, prevents people from going on and doing the things in their current situation that are going to actually create happiness. So you can spend so much time learning how to walk again, or hobble around with a walker, or you can do like Will did, just accept that you're in a wheelchair and go find all of the amazing things that you can do from a wheelchair. And I think that you would be happier just accepting things and finding out how much you can do with your current circumstances than spending so much time trying to heal. There are people that definitely heal. Like, I know somebody in my local community that was told he would never walk again, that he would always be a quadriplegic, and he can fully walk. But I also think that those stories are a lot of luck and belief as well. But the people who believe that they healed themselves are also the ones that their spinal cord just happened to have less damage. You know what I mean?
I do. I agree with that 100%. I always think the thing is, it's a double-edged sword. I don't think you're ever gonna walk again, and I do. I don't want to discourage anyone who's new to spinal cord injury for having that goal, but I do definitely want to caveat that with walking again doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Happiness does not equal walking. I've done a great video about that, explaining that that life is worth living from a wheelchair. But I don't want to discourage anyone from trying. And the thing is, anyone who does walk again after spinal cord injury, they really did believe it. So whether their spinal cord injury was damaged less than the guy next to them, they really did believe it. So of course, that's going to reaffirm that, I guess, belief that, I healed myself because I believed that I could. But what it does, the negative thing, I think, is that it points to the guy who's not walking again and saying, well, you didn't believe hard enough. And it's the same as prayer. Like, when people try and faith heal with prayer, you're like, well, you didn't pray hard enough. And it's just such an easy get out of, oh, but why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? Well, you didn't do it long enough. You didn't pray hard enough. You didn't want it bad enough. And that can manifest as shame. Didn't I want it enough? Oh my God, did I not believe enough? Whereas realistically, I think, again, I'm not 100% sure. I think generally it comes down to how much your spinal cord is damaged and luck, really. I know that some people have spinal cords that are damaged quite a lot, and they do end up getting a lot back. I don't know the ins and outs of that, so I don't want to discount it completely. But I do think there can definitely be some negative things when you tell people they just need to believe it, and then when it doesn't happen, well, sorry, you didn't believe it enough.
Yeah, I think it also sort of like increases the amount if you're around people that did get healed and they say it's because they believed enough. It increases the why me sort of thing, because I believe with prayer too, that's the same thing. Like, which is why I have a hard time with religion and, a higher power and all that stuff that is, I don't know, like, I can't, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an intentional higher power that's like, I'm going to choose this person to heal, and I'm going to choose this person to get a spinal cord injury. I'm going to choose this person to be born into a horrible, abusive family. Like, I just don't believe that is a thing. So I don't believe that there's a choice for like that healing aspect either. I don't believe that people are chosen to have bad things happen to them, and I don't think people are chosen to be healed over other people, because otherwise you would sit there going like, well, why him? Why does he get that, right? So I just think, like you say, it's a lot of luck and a lot of just your own genetics in terms of your ability to heal, because there's some people that just are naturally born with better genetics in terms of, metabolism, immune system, all of that stuff. And so I think there's like a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. But I think spending time trying to tease out why some people heal and other people don't is a waste of time, because that just is it's just such a drain on your energy, because then you're trying to figure something out that you probably will never have an answer to ever. And so I don't spend time doing that. I'm like, if I see somebody that's getting lots back after their spinal cord injury, I'm like, that's so awesome. Like, I have a friend that he's got his bowel and bladder back. His legs are starting to function again, and I'm so happy for him.
How long has he been
But
injured?
I think it's 4 years.
Oh,
4 years,
wow.
and he did do like he's gone for stem cell treatments a number of times. So every time he goes, he gets a little bit of something back. And he was an incomplete injury to begin with, but I'm so happy for him. But I don't spend time thinking about why not me. It's just a useless waste of my energy, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. I guess there's no, scientific way to measure it. So I think that's why I don't want to discount it, but I think it can go alongside anyone that's heals. They really need to believe that they're going to heal as well.
Mhm.
Like it's not, but I want to answer this thoughtfully. Yeah, I don't want to discount it completely, but I think you want to take it with a pinch of salt, really. It's
Mhm.
like it's like anything. It's like sort of Reiki or stuff like that, where people don't touch you. It's if you believe that you're being healed and you have a nice time and you come out afterwards and you feel relief from your symptoms. Like I say, I do believe in the placebo effect, but the placebo effect is not going to heal your spinal cord.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think, but yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. I wish I had more, but I think that's just
Yeah.
my point of view.
Yeah. I've definitely read a lot of books that are, some would consider like woo-woo stuff. And now we're really learning that there is a lot more scientific evidence that points to the fact that your energy levels and your thoughts definitely have an effect. So it's not like there's no evidence, but the evidence that it could, like, spontaneously heal cancer, or spontaneously like heal a spinal cord injury, like somebody just like wakes up tomorrow and starts walking. And like, there are stories like that out there floating around the interwebs. So
Mm.
it's not like it's not ever happening ever, but I can't explain it, and I'm a science mind. So if I can't explain it scientifically, then I go, it's not worth trying.
Mm.
To just let the miracles be miracles and let science be science. That's my thing. So
Well, you make a good point there, because there are always these outliers, these anecdotes of
yeah.
like, oh, this guy, he thought himself better, and all of a sudden he healed himself with his mind. And I think that's really fascinating. But like my skeptical brain is like, okay, we'll get 50 or like 200 spinal cord injury patients, and we'll give them the exact same injury, and 100, like, they
Yeah.
try, thinking themselves better, and the other 100 try a different technique, and then we'll see, we can measure, we'll have some
Mm.
tangible proof, um, other than just the odd anecdote, the odd
Yeah.
story that someone's just thought themselves better. So yeah, it's my skeptical mind goes to that place. But like I say, it, I don't know. I've already said it. Really, you're not gonna heal from a spinal cord injury if you don't
Yeah.
believe that you will. Well, I don't know. Maybe I tell you about the guy who I met down the lake who like he got like loads of function back, and he didn't do anything. Did I tell you about that story?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. So there you go. Right. When I say you're never going to get it back if you don't believe it. Well, there's this guy who I met. This was like a couple of years ago. He was down by the lake and he had one of those wheelchairs with I can't remember what a trike thing. I can't remember. Even though I saw the wheelchair immediately and I thought, oh, well, he is not in that wheelchair for funsies. Like he's definitely got an injury. So I went over to him. I said, oh, hi, mate. Nice wheels. And we had a chat. And he was very reluctant to share this information because his mates were egging him on. I don't know if it was like some sort of survivor guilt, but it turns out that he could walk, but he'd spent like 5 or 6 years not being able to walk, had like a very, what you would call a complete injury. Then he just started getting feeling back, and then movement back, and then voluntary movement back. And I know that some people can recover from like spinal shock, but like not after like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So this was fascinating, and he was downplaying it. He's like, "Oh no, I it's not that much." And his mate was like, "No, check him out." And he showed me a picture of him dancing at a wedding, like he had canes, and I was like, "Oh my God, no way! That's amazing. That's really cool." I was like, "Are you staying in wheelchair accessible accommodation?" And then again, his mate was like, "Oh no, he can walk up the stairs." I was like, oh my God. So there is like walking and then there's walking upstairs.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is phenomenal. And he apparently, bowel, bladder, everything back. And I was like, what's your secret? And I was thinking, please let it be something, I don't know, maybe he eats loads of bananas or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's like, don't know, mate, just sit on the couch, drink beer. And I was like, no, oh no. So he's like, he's one of these guys that he's done 0 rehab and just accidentally healed. But he's reluctant to share his story with me because I think he might feel guilty about it. Like maybe he's had that reaction before where he's like, oh yeah, look, I'm just getting loads of healing back for free. And some people that are doing loads of rehab are like, oh, damn it, why you? So I think he was reluctant to share that. But fascinating story.
That's why sometimes you can't just explain it. You just can't. So just don't try, because if you start to make yourself feel shitty about something that you either did or didn't do to create healing in your own body, then I just think there's no rhyme or reason to half of it. So I don't try to explain it, which is why I do believe in like an energy that's like, not intentional necessarily, but that you can tap into. I believe that there's like an energy that you can tap into if you have a higher frequency energy that you are like operating with on a daily basis. So I believe that you can tap into a stream of energy that is more positive and that creates positive things in your life. But I don't believe that there's like an intentionality to it that's like, here's what I'm going to give to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't believe that, which is why I don't try to understand religion or faith or anything like that. I just, if I do have faith, I don't try to like science it out of, I don't try and make it all sciencey, because it's just not the place.
No, I get it. I was like, I wanted this guy to like donate his body to like medical research. I was like, come on, man, take one for the team. There's something going on inside your body which we could all benefit from. Like, what is it?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's like when you talk to like the centenarians or whatever, then they get interviewed and they're like, what do you do? And they're like, I don't know, I eat junk food and drink beer every day and haven't exercised a day in my life. And they're like 115. And you're like, all right, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Anyway, shifting gears, I also wanted to talk about ChatGPT.
This was an interesting one.
Whether it's like a net positive for humanity or whether it's a creativity thief. So I had this. This all stems from a conversation I had with my girlfriend this morning. I cycled down to the woods and to meet her for a little dog walk. And I was like, oh, I had a great night last night. All that footage that we took. So we went on a hike recently. Sorry, let me craft this story a little bit better. We went on a hike recently and it was really lovely. We went completely off the beaten track to this waterfall and it was lovely. And I took my 360 camera and we got lots of footage. But when you get almost like too much footage and I'm overwhelmed with footage. I don't know how I'm going to make this into a YouTube video or it's just going to stay on this hard drive or stay on that SD card until I, record over it. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT. And by the way, if you've used ChatGPT recently, it is remarkable. It has come so far since the first edition. It is mind-blowingly good. So I just said, hey, I've got all this footage. I'd love to make a YouTube video, short and succinct. I'd love to perhaps craft a narrative over the top of it and use all the footage as B-roll, because otherwise I think it would be really quite boring. There's like over an hour of footage, and I'd probably like to get it down to like maybe 6 or 7 minutes. And these are the things that happened. Oh, no, sorry. I also said, can you give me some storytelling prompts that I can give back to you to help me create some sort of script or outline? And it said, yeah. So it said, what was the weather like? Whose idea was it to go? Like all these wonderful things. And I was like, oh, brilliant. So I got back to it, say, oh, it's my girlfriend. It was her. She wanted me to go, but she downplayed it because she knew that I, don't like going out of my comfort zone very much. It was steeper than I thought it was going to be. And there was a funny anecdote that happened in the middle involving, well, basically we got to the top and then some Japanese tourists pulled up in a bus and just got out. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. Like it really took the jam out of my donut, because I was like, we bloody hiked all the way to get here. And these guys drove up this road where it definitely said that you couldn't drive. And then ChatGPT was like, oh, that's amazing. You've got a great little story here. Like, this is how we can craft it. So it got back to me with like how I could word it, how I could start the video, what sort of B-roll, what sort of footage I've got. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I started work immediately. Editing the 360 camera footage is very time consuming. So I thought, oh, I'm very excited to do this now. And I got down to the woods today to talk to Chris, and I was like, oh, that footage that we got, well, I'm making it into a video. And I asked ChatGPT to help, and I explained this to her. And instead of being like, oh, that's amazing, my love, I'm so stoked, we're going to have a beautiful memory, and you're going to craft a beautiful video that, we can all enjoy, my friends and family and everything. She was like, ChatGPT, just like, you're just outsourcing your creativity to ChatGPT. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not. It's like a content coach, like it's got all my previous conversations stored, so it knows about me. It knows that when I asked for help writing up the podcast, it knows that I have a podcast with you. It's called Wheel Talk. I'm a paraplegic. I'm active. I recorded it. It knows all these things because I've been using it. So what perfect entity to ask for advice on this YouTube channel or this YouTube video? And I was met with not like the opposite of enthusiasm, like as if I was outsourcing my creativity and I wasn't thinking. And I was like, no, I've still got to edit the video. I've still got to do all the voiceovers. I think it's amazing what ChatGPT has done for me. However, I thought I'd ask you, what do you think? Do you think using ChatGPT is an amazing tool, or is it the more we outsource our creativity, the dumber we get by asking this wonderful AI machine to give us all the answers?
I think AI is an amazing tool for productivity, but I think it is a terrible tool for creativity. I think that it is damaging our ability to think critically and to just all of the things that would normally like take us a long time to like craft an idea and all of that stuff. It's doing for us. There's a fly that's annoying the crap out of me. It's doing that for us. And because it's so nice when it does the thinking for us, it's so easy to get used to using it. And I've used it a few times, but like I've never used it for YouTube or anything like that. I like after you did your meal plan thing, I was like, oh, I'm going to see what kind of a meal plan ChatGPT comes up with, because I'm having a hard time getting enough potassium. And that's what I want to like optimize. And so it was awesome for that, because I was like, oh, this would take me a long time to sit down. So in an analytic sort of space where you can do it, it's not like a creative endeavor, it's mostly just information finding. I think like those things are amazing for increasing productivity and reducing the amount of time that you're spending on something. But in the creativity space, I think it's going to be really damaging just to the art space in general. I think photography, videography, like even like editing and things like that, like just people that work in cartoons, like anything artistic that way, like I think it's going to really damage that industry. I think it's damaging our ability to think creatively as human beings. And I just see it with kids. Like I see it with kids, the less they think about the things that they want to do or create, and the more they can go on to art, like Canva. Like my
Mm,
daughter's school uses Canva for everything now, and
mm.
so kids don't draw or think about how to make a poster, or like they just and it's really, I just see it as a bad thing. So that's my opinion. Productivity,
Interesting.
awesome. Creativity, not.
I guess so. Like you're right. So ChatGPT wrote a meal plan for me, but now it's
Yes.
been over 50 days and ChatGPT has not been consistent on following that meal plan and losing like 4.5 kilos. Like that
Right.
was me. So like
Yes.
ChatGPT is a tool that helps me. And I do get your points, but my point particularly for this video is that I've either got all this footage that's really hard to edit, or I get inspiration from ChatGPT,
Yes.
who's I'm asking it, oh, is this a good idea? That's a great idea. Let's expand on it in this way. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that Japanese tourist anecdote is amazing. Like you could phrase it this way, and then it would be, and then also create a narrative that's like really wholesome at the end, because you say, oh, maybe sometimes you don't get the things that we want, but it's nice to have a fun adventure anyway. And I was like, oh, that's such a wholesome ending. Maybe I didn't come up with that ending, but like I don't know. I can see where you're coming from. Like, but I was just so excited, and I feel like, and we didn't argue over it, but I kind of left with a real sour feeling. Like I thought she was going to be really thrilled for me, and in the end, I
Yeah.
felt like I got a bit defensive. I will admit I got a bit defensive because I thought that she was like saying, "Oh, well, I spent hours editing this video. Like ChatGPT I haven't just like, hey, make something for me. Like it's just helping me craft a narrative, which I can display using all the footage that I had. So I thought it was great, and
Yeah.
the more I use it, the more it is just blowing my mind how clever it is.
Yeah.
But yes, I think my girlfriend's point was I do use it a lot. So, for example, if I want to write up the podcast, and this is embarrassing to say this actually, and again, actually, me saying this is embarrassing is probably part of the problem. But I just tell ChatGPT what we spoke about, and I said, "Give me a write up," and it gives me a write up, and I'm like, "Excellent, copy, paste, done." And I'm
Well,
like,
they're amazing. So
right?
I was thinking today, I was like, oh my God, he's such a good writer. ChatGPT is an amazing writer, but it's helpful in stuff
Busted.
like that. It's helpful for stuff like that, and in areas where I think that's not necessarily somebody's strong suit. I think it is an amazing tool to help people tell a story that they wouldn't otherwise be able to tell in a way that is like well received by other people. Because my dad is not, he is not a good writer. That kind of thing is not his like forte. So I think for people like that would necessarily not actually be able to share the ideas that they actually have that are in their head that are great, in a way that is really digestible to other people. It helps with communication and things like that. So yeah, I'm just like I'm a little torn with it because I think it's such a new thing. We don't know what it's going to do. But I remember my grandpa telling me that like TV was going to ruin my life. If we were watching a movie in the back bedroom at my grandpa's house, he's like, kids today are terrible, and these
Mm,
TVs are ruining everything. And so I remember him saying that was going to be awful, but look at all the amazing things that we've done with technology since, the 30s when TVs were, becoming popular. So I don't know. It's one of those things that's hard to know the impact that it's going to have, until we see it. And it might kind of be a pendulum where it's like it goes way too far, where people are using it for everything. And then it's like novel and cool to be the one that isn't using AI. So then people are going to pay people lots and lots of money to be the ones that are actually drawing with their hands. You know what I mean? So
mm.
who knows where it's going to go, but I don't use it just because
What? Why
I
not?
don't
Why on earth not? It's so
I
good. It's
don't know.
free. It's
I
free. It's
know.
so
I
good.
don't know. I think it's just I don't know how to use it really. It's just a thing that I don't really know how to use that well, so I just don't.
You could
I've used it.
literally ask it. You could be like, ChatGPT, I'm not really familiar on how you work. Could you tell me how I could use you to improve my life? And it will just be like, yeah, it's conversational. It's so absolutely bonkers. Like, you can have a conversation with it and it really comes across really nicely. I've used it in times where I felt really dark. I was having like mental health issues, and it was like free therapy. And it's way better now than it was back then. It is really remarkable.
It's an interesting conversation. I don't know. People should weigh in the comments in terms of like whether they use AI for anything. But yeah, I don't use it right now. I'm one of those people that is not very technologically savvy, so I don't use it for that reason. So I might start using it more though in terms of things that are going to increase my productivity, like making me a timetable or like something like that I can stick
Yeah.
to, but I don't know.
So do you remember last week I said that I drew a picture for my landlady, Martine?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I thought I'd do another one, not for Martine, but just one for me. And I'll show you. It's not great, but it's not finished yet, but it's just like a little
Oh my
mushroom
God, I love
lady.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not finished yet, but the reason I bring that up is because I took a picture of it and I said, ChatGPT, I'm in the middle of this painting. I'm a little bit stuck creatively. Can you give me any advice on like color schemes that I can use, or like a background or something like that? And it was like, first of all, what a lovely picture! How lovely! And I was like, thanks. And then it said, you could use some reflections in the glasses, or like I see that the blue is a little bit too saturated. Maybe tone that down, lighten up so it looks like denim. Maybe try some highlights, try some shadows to bring some depth to it. As for the background, some soft earthy tones, so like green and browns. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Thanks so much. I was like, do you think you could like draw a picture and show me what you mean? And it drew this wonderful picture. I was like, thank you so much for the feedback, because now I can take that and make that painting way better than it was before, using all the tips that it gave me. And I found that remarkable. It was blowing my mind that it could see the picture and show that like it's flat, it needs highlights, shadows, depth. I was like, what don't you know? It was so
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I guess it sort of brings up sort of the question of like with our like movie industry and stuff. Do we think that our movies are less good now that less people aren't even drawing like the CGI and stuff like that's all computer generated things? And do we think it's less good because it's not like a human being sitting there like drawing the thing? I don't think so. Like, I think we're just like
Mm,
people are using it as a tool now to increase their creativity and like amplify what they would have been able to produce without AI. So maybe there's a place for it in terms of art spaces. I don't know. It's hard because, when you look at like a movie like Avatar, you think
mm.
the imagination for it was oh my God, what's the director's name?
James Cameron.
James Cameron. So like the thinking came from him, but the tools brought his what was in his imagination to life. And he wouldn't have been able to bring such a cool movie to life without AI,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to Avatar, it was a lot more technological. There was a lot of people doing that. It wasn't necessarily
Oh,
AI.
I
But I know what you
guess.
mean. It's not like, I mean, in fact, to be honest, I think that's probably a terrible example, because I think there was a lot of work that James Cameron does, like underwater, to do the Avatar, which was underwater.
Yeah.
I think he does a lot of. That's probably not a great example. There are other
Oh,
people. There are other movies that take way more creative shortcuts.
I
And
guess.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I just meant like technology, I guess. Maybe not AI specifically, but like technology tools that amplify our creativity is sort of what I was trying to get at. But
Mm.
and I guess AI is a tool to amplify creativity. One of the things that I think is going to be really cool in terms of like what AI can do for people like us is if we want to do like a photo shoot or something like that, but it's really annoying to get up into this really inaccessible place, but we want to have photos of us. You can just like literally put your face in these AI apps and be like, I want to be in the mountains, and it'll do like a couple's photo shoot for you with like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but that's a
Like,
bit weird because a photo is meant to be a memory.
I know, but I mean like brand photos or like just anything like that that would normally not necessarily be like for a memory, but for like branding or like for your website or something like that, that you just want it to look a certain way, but you don't want to actually go through all the work of doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sure. It's
I
got its
guess so.
place.
The more and more the AI gets advanced, it does get very scary, especially with the deep fakes. I even made a video
Oh,
of you, didn't I?
yeah, you totally did. It's scary with the deep fakes because you don't even know what's real when you're watching stuff on like TikTok anymore. Like a
Yeah.
celebrity, it'll be a celebrity, and you're like, I don't even believe this. Like, I don't think this is that person.
Aren't you a bit old for TikTok?
No, you
No,
don't
I
watch
don't know.
TikTok. I don't know.
No.
I'm trying to see TikTok as like a creative outlet in terms of like how I make short form content. So I'm trying to like just open it up as a different space that I share the same information on, because there's a lot of people on TikTok, like a lot of people on TikTok. And so I'm trying to see social media as a place to access more people that I want to help, but I'm not really on TikTok. It's just
Mm.
I'm trying to be more on TikTok. I'm trying to be on TikTok more.
I think TikTok is more destructive than AI for sure. Definitely more destructive than ChatGPT. I
For
think
sure.
again, I've never even looked on TikTok. I've never opened it, but like I do think and we've spoken about this before, the ripple effect of TikTok has taken over other platforms with YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and it's just trying. I think it's dumbed down everyone and into shortening their attention spans, and that's why I don't like it. I kind of rally against it, and I try to make. I don't really make short form content. I just don't. It just I don't know, and and maybe you're right, and I do apologize for saying, aren't you a bit old to be on TikTok? I just genuinely think it's for kids, and
Oh
maybe that's
no,
inaccurate.
it's totally inaccurate. It is a huge, like my husband watches TikTok a lot, and his thing is all political. It's all news. My daughter loves like crafting stuff, so it's just like any other social platform that has an algorithm that learns what you want to see. So my husband, that's his place to get news. My daughter, that's her place to get crafting stuff. And for me, it's like kind of a mix of like everything. It's just funny stuff on mine mostly. I love homesteading stuff. Anything with like, I don't know, like growing your own food and stuff like that. So that's like basically what my TikTok feed is, even though it's not related to my niche
Mm,
at all. But so yeah, there's a lot of people on TikTok, and the funny thing is that TikTok is realizing that you don't form deep connections with people in short form content. And so now they are increasing the length of their videos and prioritizing horizontal videos over vertical videos, because they're realizing that they are never, unless they change something, they're never going to get the kind of connections that YouTube creates. It's harder to get a subscriber on YouTube than it is on TikTok or
mm,
Instagram or other short form content platforms, but the relationships that you make are much deeper, and
mm,
people are much more likely to be raving fans and stay on the platform and come back to the platform to follow that person um, than they are if they are on TikTok. But
mm,
TikTok is definitely catching up in a lot of ways. But if you follow any sort of media people on YouTube that follow the research and sort of the statistics around YouTube and TikTok, the TikTok does have a lot of people on the platform, but people aren't spending as much time on the platform as they are on YouTube in long form content, because I think people are realizing that it's just fluff.
I
The
guess
short form
so.
content is mostly fluff.
I just heard that the algorithm is insanely addictive. Like
It
they said that I heard someone say that the TikTok algorithm is more addictive than crack cocaine, and I was like, "Yep, don't need that. Absolutely not. I spend too much time looking at YouTube long form content. Like imagine." And even I went back on Instagram recently just to promote the podcast with Will and look on hit, and man, I get like, oh my god, it's engaging, but it's this weird sort of like more cringy type content that's like trying to, because it's short form, it's like grab your attention before you scroll away, and it, I don't know, it kind of, I just find it a little cringy. But and
Yeah.
again, I've not used TikTok, but I can imagine TikTok is all the things I hate about Instagram amplified. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm too scared. It's like if someone
Yeah.
says it's more addictive than crack cocaine, and your mum always says, "Don't do drugs." I'm like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
just go, "Oh, I'll just smoke a little bit of crack." Like, we'll
Yeah.
see how it goes. So yeah, I think I'm a little bit scared.
Um,
Is it as addictive as people say it is?
It's not anymore. I feel like TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts are all the same. Like you will literally see the exact same content on all three. Like I
Ah, I
have seen
see.
the same. I'll go to TikTok and I will see the exact same thing that I just saw on Instagram Reels because the
So
same,
what's the
usually
point?
this. Yeah, exactly. A lot of the time they're all the same. Like my daughter was trying to like, stop being so like addicted to social media. So she doesn't have Facebook or Instagram or anything, but she has YouTube Shorts. So she's like, I'm going to get rid of TikTok. And then she just like switched to YouTube Shorts, or Snapchat has something called Spotlight. And it's the same thing as like TikTok or Instagram Reels. And so they're all the same stuff. So I don't think it's
Mm,
any more addictive. And I personally, if I scroll on like TikTok for like 20 minutes, maybe, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm
fair
much
enough.
more likely to get addicted to long form content because I get invested in a story where you can't
Mm,
get invested in a story on TikTok. Occasionally, you'll get like a content creator that you like and they'll have a few funny things, but I go on there to like laugh or find something like, I don't know, inspirational. But you can't, I don't know, like I go back to YouTube, like I literally, if I like type in your channel, this other girl that I follow, Catherine Manning, there's like literally like 4 people that I follow, and I will search their content and it automatically comes up because I go back and try and look for them. Even though I'm subscribed to people, it doesn't automatically, I think I don't have my notifications set up properly because I
mm,
never get notifications when people post a video. So something is wrong
mm.
with my notifications. But anyway, I'm just saying that I'm more likely to get invested in long form content because you can get engaged in somebody's life, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like I said before, I have a problem with Instagram. That's why I've deleted it off my phone for the last 6 months. I can't be on Snapchat, mate. I just, you know what I mean? I don't think I trust myself. But what about your kids? Are they scrollers?
To a degree. My daughter is more likely to watch long form content. Like she likes YouTubers, certain YouTubers, travel YouTubers, and she likes a couple of people that do makeup. Even though she hates makeup and would never wear it, she loves art. So she likes to watch people do makeup in and like see how that art form is sort of performed. Or she'll draw for hours watching other people draw on YouTube, and she'll learn how to draw certain things. Jacob is definitely a TikTok scroller, but he's at the age now, which is an interesting segue to the conversation that I wanted to talk to you about and sort of ask your opinion with or about. He's definitely a scroller, and he's at the age now where I start to have these conversations with him about the things that you spend your time doing most of the time is what your life is going to look like. So if you don't want your life to look like this, don't spend your time doing that. And I always talk to my kids too about like social media being a way for them to watch other people live their lives while not living their own. So it's an interesting like concept, but Jacob can get really caught up in it. But I have access, like I have control over their phones, so I can
Oh,
turn their
cool,
phones off. Like if I wanted to turn their phone up right now, I could literally go on my phone and turn their phone off entirely. I can
cool.
turn off their any app I want. I can see how much time they spend on every single app.
Wow.
And until Jacob's paying for, some people are like, you should, not be monitoring your almost 16-year-old kid's phone. And I'm like, well, if he wants to start paying for his own phone, he can
Yeah.
absolutely not have his mother monitor his time management. But for me, it's just a teaching tool. Like I basically give them free reign on their time, and then I show them how they're spending their time. And if they haven't done their chores and they tell me, oh, I didn't have time to do my chores today, I will literally go on their phone and I'll be like, well, you spend an hour on TikTok and you absolutely had enough time to do your chores. So don't tell me that. So I use it as a teaching tool. But yeah, like the short answer to that was a long-winded way to just say that they are scrollers in their own ways. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the other thing that you wanted to segue into about your kids?
Oh yeah. Okay. So my kids have been struggling with a few things lately, and I am struggling as a parent with kids that are getting old enough to sort of make their own decisions on how to like guide somebody. And how much help do you give them before it's actually like hurting them? Because you always see those parents that never let their kids fail, and then their kids actually are worse off for it. So I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my daughter and her friends were all waiting to go on this app that we can look at to see who their teacher for next year is, because my daughter goes to quite a big school. So she's going into 7th grade, and there's 4 classes, grade 7 classes. So they split the kids up usually and kind of sort of juggle them around so they're not all together. And they don't stay with the same class. So they were all on this app looking to see who their teachers were going to be. And my daughter was the only one out of her friend group that didn't make it into the same class. So there's about 5 or 6 girls that always hang out together, and all 5 girls were put in the same class, and my daughter was put into a different class. And immediately my daughter was entirely upset. She was like, all of my friends are together in one class and I'm all by myself. Like, why would they do that? Normally they try and put at least 2 friends together in one class. And so she was crying, and her friend was over and was just like, this really sucks. And so I was trying to explain to her that, you know, they probably didn't do it on purpose and that she would be fine. And immediately she was like, go to the school and try and change classes for me. And I am not that parent that tries to fix hard things for my kids. So I was like, for one, I said, it's okay to be upset. It's absolutely okay to be upset. You should be upset, and you're going to be upset for a little while. But I said, what I'm going to help you do as a parent is manage your hard emotions, work through them, and then realize that you are going to be okay, even if you're not in your class with your friends. And she was really annoyed at me that I wasn't immediately just going to the school and saying, change my kid into the class with her friends. So I wanted to ask your opinion about this as an individual, like growing up. Did you ever look at your parents and be like, they left me sort of in the lurch, they should have helped me more? Or do you see your parents, when they let you struggle, as like a learning opportunity, and do you think it made you stronger? Because I'm always like, am I doing the wrong thing? Because I'm like, am I going to ruin her grade 7 year by not putting her in a class with her friends? Because I said, I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking that your friends are all going to be in that class. They're all going to be better friends than you. You're going to grow apart from them. They're going to be doing sleepovers and stuff. You're going to be left out. And she was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And so I know what she's thinking and how she's feeling, but I also don't want to just rescue her from that, because I'm like, you might make new friends. You have the opportunity to meet new people, and you might meet somebody that's going to be like your lifelong friend from here on out. And you have an opportunity to, you know, nurture friendships that aren't necessarily you're not with them every day. So I was like trying to see it as like a good thing, but she was like annoyed at me. And then later on in the day, she was like, I'm glad we talked through that, Mom. I'm going to be fine. So she was okay. But I never know when I'm like hurting my kids by letting them struggle, and how much do they have to struggle before you help them? That's my question.
Well, first of all, I applaud you. Can you be my mum? That sounds lovely. Like I feel like you handled that perfectly. Everything you said, I was like, wow, that's incredible. What incredible foresight that you had. Beautiful advice that you gave. And like you say, she seems to have taken it on the chin and been like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I'm glad that we spoke about that. I think you should let your kids handle anything that they're strong enough to handle, really. I think I'm not a parent, but from there's this anecdote that my mum tells and my sister tells about my dad. Like, so my biological dad, before he died, he was he was a disciplinarian. He taught me to like read and write. By the age of 3, I was riding a bike. He would, but he wanted me to do really well. But he also wanted me to eat my vegetables. And he grew his own vegetables in the garden. And as a kid, I was like, oh, he's a monster. He's making me eat these vegetables that I don't like, even if they go cold on the plate and they're all old and salty. He's like, you're not leaving the table until you eat those vegetables. Now, as an adult, I'm like, he grew those vegetables in his garden. He wanted me to grow up not being spoiled and, eating chocolate and sweets. Like he wanted the best for me. And I really admire that. I did not see it as a kid. Absolutely not. And the one anecdote that my mum and my sister like to tell is the one where I ate all my vegetables and I was like swallowing them like pills with water, and then I was sick. I went outside, I was sick. My dad came around the corner, slipped up in the sick on his ass, and then mum was like, I told you didn't want to eat the vegetables. And we painted him as this sort of like pantomime villain, like this guy. He was, he made you eat the vegetables, but then he got his comeuppance. And I remember thinking, that's a funny story for the longest time, until I saw the opposite. I was staying with some friends recently, and their daughter would get away with so much. They allowed her to eat chocolate before breakfast. But if she didn't like anything, she'd be like, oh, okay, that's okay, have something else. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it was the complete opposite, pandering to her. It was just wild to see how much she got away with, and how much I couldn't convince them to be like, you sure you want to, like, because you're kind of spoiling her a little bit. Like, she's going to grow up to be like, I didn't say this, but I was thinking, I was saying to Chris, she's going to be a princess, man. Like she's not going to, a little bit of discipline would go a long way. But again, I'm not a parent and I'm a guest in your house. So I certainly didn't say that, but I was thinking it. I was like, wow. And that made me think about my dad. And I was like, do you know what? All of a sudden, 40 years later, of that incident, I'm like, do you know what? He was trying to make me eat my vegetables because he was trying to instill some bloody good foundational values in me, not that he was just this ogre, this monster who was just like, eat your vegetables, do as I say. He wanted me to read and write and ride a bike and do all these things. He wanted the best for me. And he knew that I could handle those things, I think. But of course, and then there's my mum, bless her. I love my mum, but she would always be like, oh, have some chocolate, like she would give me things and she would do those things. She would spoil me, really. And bless her, she did it from a place of love. And I love my mum. She's amazing. But of course, if you ask me which parent I preferred, of course, I want the one who buys me chocolate and spoils me. But in hindsight, which parent was probably doing the better job? It's debatable. They both love me very much, but I know that my dad had a lot of the best intentions, and he didn't get the credit I think that he deserved.
I think that's what I struggle with so much as a parent right now, because I think the tough love is beneficial in the long term, but really hard for kids in the short term. So I'll share a story with you that this is kind of one of the stories that always comes to my mind when I think about tough love with my kids. So like Joe, my husband, he was in 11th grade and he got kicked out of school for not attending enough. And actually not, yeah. So he was passing and he was doing well in his grades, but he didn't attend enough. So they kicked him out of school, and he wanted his parents to defend him in that he was passing and there were no rules about attendance. There were only rules about grades, but his parents sided with the school and said, you have to learn your lesson. They're going to kick you out. So he didn't graduate. So he got kicked out of school, didn't graduate, and he actually had to go back to school after to get what we call here in North America or in Canada a GED, which is like an equivalent to your grade 12 diploma, but it's not an actual diploma. It's just sort of an equivalency. So it kind of like set him back a full year by getting kicked out of school, because then he had to go to a different school. And he still, like, to this day is like, my parents should have been on my side because I was passing. It was my attendance that sucked. They should have been like, you need to pull up your socks, go to school more, but you're passing, you're doing well. So we're going to defend you and say that they shouldn't kick you out. But they didn't. They sided with the school. And even though like now he sees why they did it, because it probably made him mature faster. It made him realize that, you know, showing up is more important than necessarily just the job that you're doing. Like you actually have to show up. And like it just I struggle with that sometimes, because I'm like, am I hurting my kids by not helping them in some ways? But I want to help them. Like I want to help them so badly, but I try to let them suffer their own consequences. Like I'm a teacher, and Jacob sometimes struggles in school, not because of his intelligence, but because of his whether he wants to do the work and do his homework. And I I sort of back off a lot, and I'm like, if you don't pass because you don't want to do your homework, that's not me, that's not my fault. But I'm like, am I damaging him in some ways by like not pushing him more to do his homework? Because I'm like, you're almost 16 years old. I can tell you to do your homework every day, but that's not my job anymore. Like, I don't need to tell you to do your homework. You know, you need to do your homework. And if you don't pass because you don't do your homework, that's your fault, right? But I always worry that, and he's never failed because he always ends up, you know, doing what he has to do. But I'm always worried that if he does, is he gonna like come back on me and be like, you didn't tell me to do my homework every day? You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I think he can take responsibility for that. The situation with Joe is a little bit more gray. It's not so black and white, you know. It's there. I could definitely see Joe's point of view. Like, you know, he was passing. Like you maybe just give him one chance. Okay, listen, this is your final chance. You know, like buck up your ideas, attend, or we'll kick you out. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're doing a good job, though. I think you're doing a very good job. The conversation that you had with Jamie was admirable. Honestly, it's lovely, and I think you're a very mature parent, and I think that you're doing a great job. So I don't know if I'm in a place to give advice, but I think you're doing a wonderful job. So
Well, that makes me feel better. That makes me feel better. But yeah, I hate when I never believed people when they said like having older kids is harder than having little kids, but it's so much harder because you are now navigating social like dynamics with them and teaching them how to cope with their emotions in that way. Whereas when they're little, there are definitely things like you have to teach them how to share and all of that stuff. Like, don't be an asshole when you go to grade 1. Don't make fun of kids and all that stuff. But at this age now, it's like that, you know, whether they're getting made fun of or bullied, and Jacob dealt with some of that, and like trying to navigate all of that is way harder when they're older. So yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence and reassurance that I'm actually doing a good job, because sometimes I'm never really sure.
it's a tough spot. I can see that Jamie would be upset, but at the same time, it's one of those things that with the benefit of hindsight, she will look back on and be like, oh yeah, like no matter what life her no matter what path she'll take, she'll look back on that as a pivotal moment and be like, oh yeah, you know, all those other girls, you know, I wouldn't have met this other friend if I hadn't have done that. And I think, you know, it'll all become clear in time. But it's hard when you're young. But she, like I say, honestly, it seems like she's already halfway there after the pep talk that you gave her. So I think that's really great. So well done.
Yeah, she seems fine now, which is really good. And I think my take home message to my kids is always that you can handle it. Like, even though it's hard, you can handle it, because like we said before, when we were talking about the, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, the thing that you have to tell yourself at the end of the whole stream of like, you know, things that you do during that process is that you can handle it ultimately. So yeah.
Brilliant.
I think we're right at our time. So
sounds fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. I don't know if people watching live can see me wiggling my bum, and you know what that means.
I totally noticed that. I was like, he's got to pee like 10 minutes ago.
I need a wee. Anyway, thanks so much everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it. And we will see you next week.
Bye guys.
See ya. Bye.